Have you ever stopped to think about what actually happens when a man over 60 decides to lift weights and refuses to accept the quiet idea that his best years are behind him? Not the motivation, not the quotes, not the theory, but the real physical, mental, and social transformation that unfolds when he consistently challenges his body with resistance. Most men assume that after a certain age, strength disappears, energy fades, and decline becomes inevitable. They accept sore joints, low drive, and shrinking confidence as the natural cost of getting older. But science and real-world results tell a very different story. Because when a man over 60 picks up a barbell and doesn't put it down, something powerful begins to happen, and it goes far beyond muscle. In the first few weeks, even if he hasn't touched weights in decades, his body begins to remember. This is something called muscle memory, and it's one of the most underestimated advantages older men have. Neural pathways that once controlled strength and coordination begin firing again. The nervous system wakes up before the muscles do. He might not see visible changes in the mirror yet, but internally his body is reactivating systems that have been dormant for years. Strength starts returning faster than logic suggests it should. Movements feel more natural. Balance improves. His body isn't learning from scratch, it's remembering what it once knew. That alone gives many men their first shock. They realize they're not broken. They were just inactive. By the second month, the visible changes begin. Muscle tissue starts rebuilding, but not the swollen look of inflammation. It's dense, functional strength. His shoulders sit a little wider. His chest feels firmer. His posture improves without him consciously trying. Shirts fit differently. Pants feel looser around the waist but tighter around the legs. People begin responding to him differently, even if they can't explain why. There's something subtle about a man who moves with purpose. His walk changes. He occupies space more confidently. He doesn't rush or shrink himself the way he used to. He starts standing up straighter in conversations, looking people in the eye more easily. Not because he's trying to impress, but because his body is giving him a signal he hasn't felt in years. You're stronger than you think. By the third month, something even more interesting happens. This is where most men quit. The soreness, the doubts, the impatience get loud. Progress feels slow. The novelty wears off. But the few who stay, the 3% who push through this phase, experience a separation point. This is when definition becomes undeniable. Strength jumps noticeably. Movements that once felt heavy become controlled. The mirror starts telling a story he hasn't seen in 20 or 30 years. And for the first time in a long time, he feels momentum in the right direction. Studies back this up. Research from the University of Alabama found that men over 60 who lifted weights for just 16 weeks increased muscle fiber size by up to 30%. Not younger men, not athletes, ordinary men in their 60s and 70s, which proves something important. The body does not stop responding to training because of age. It stops responding when you stop asking anything of it. But the most powerful changes don't show up in the mirror first. They show up in the bloodstream. Testosterone, the hormone most men assume disappears forever after 60, responds dramatically to resistance training. Lifting heavy weights sends a clear biological message to the body. This man needs to be stronger, and the endocrine system responds accordingly. Studies published in the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research found that men in their 60s who followed consistent resistance training programs increased testosterone levels by 15 to 20% naturally. No injections, no pills, just iron and effort. Human growth hormone increases as well. This affects muscle repair, fat loss, skin quality, and recovery. Insulin sensitivity improves, meaning the body handles sugar and energy more efficiently. Cortisol, the stress hormone that quietly erodes health and mood, comes back under control. These are not abstract lab numbers. They show up in daily life. He wakes up with more energy, not the jittery spike of caffeine, but stable, usable energy that lasts through the day. His sleep deepens. Real, restorative sleep, the kind he thought was reserved for younger men. His mood stabilizes. The low-grade irritability many men accept as normal aging begins to fade. He feels calmer, more patient, more grounded. Hormonally, his body starts operating the way it did 10, sometimes 15 years earlier, and that hormonal shift feeds directly into the mind. This is where the real transformation happens. Most men over 60 carry a quiet internal story. It says, my best years are behind me. I should slow down. I should be careful. I shouldn't expect too much anymore. This story doesn't arrive all at once. It builds slowly through years of subtle signals from society, from doctors, from media, from friends who stop trying. But every time a man lifts something heavy, every time he challenges his body and survives it, that story starts cracking. Each rep becomes evidence, not for the world, for himself, that he is still capable, still adaptive, still becoming. Men who start lifting later in life often describe it the same way. I didn't realize how much I had lost until I started getting it back. They talk about feeling like themselves again, not a younger version, a truer version, one that isn't shrinking or apologizing for existing. Harvard research shows that resistance training can reduce symptoms of depression in older adults by up to 50%. Not medication, not talk therapy, progressive overload. Why does it work so well? Because lifting creates tangible proof of progress. You set a goal, you apply effort, you see real results. results. In a world that increasingly tells older men to step aside, lifting says something very different. I'm still here, and I'm not done. That mental shift from decline to growth changes everything. Confidence returns quietly at first, then it starts showing up in decisions, in conversations, in posture, in how he treats his own future. And then the social transformation begins. The people around him notice, not just the physique, but the energy, the presence, the way he carries himself. His wife notices first. She sees him standing taller, moving with intention, more engaged, more stable, more alive. Many women describe it the same way. Whatever he's doing, tell him to keep doing it. The attraction isn't just physical, it's emotional. Strength signals reliability, presence, vitality. His children and grandchildren notice next. He's no longer the grandfather watching from the sidelines. He's the one lifting them, playing with them, staying involved. He has the stamina to participate instead of observe. He becomes a figure of energy instead of fragility. That changes how they see him, and how he sees himself. Strangers notice too. People respond differently to a man who occupies space with confidence. Respect is given differently. Attention is given differently. There's a subtle authority in physical capability that doesn't need to be announced. And here's the part most men don't expect. Younger men notice. When a man over 60 is visibly strong, clearly fit, and clearly refusing the decline narrative, younger men feel it immediately. They ask questions. They want to know how he did it, how he's still doing it. He becomes living proof that what society says about aging is wrong. He moves from invisible to undeniable. This transformation doesn't require extreme routines. It doesn't require obsession. It requires consistency. 3 to 4 sessions a week, 30 to 45 minutes. Focus on compound movements, squats, presses, rows, deadlifts, movements that mimic real life. Progress slowly. Prioritize form. Respect recovery. Sleep. Eat real food. Track progress. Let momentum build. Men in their 60s and 70s around the world are proving this every day. A man who couldn't climb stairs without fatigue now carries groceries effortlessly. A man who hadn't seen his shoulders in 20 years suddenly notices them in the mirror again. A man who felt invisible starts receiving respect again, not because he demanded it, but because he earned it. The biggest myth about lifting after 60 is that it's too late. It's not. The second myth is that it's dangerous. It's not when done intelligently. The third myth is that supplements or shortcuts are required. They're not. The body responds to stress. Real stress. Mechanical stress. Progressive stress. Iron is honest. It gives back exactly what you put into it. So what actually happens to men over 60 who lift weights? Physically, they regain muscle, strength, posture, and mobility. Hormonally, they restore testosterone, growth hormone, and metabolic health. Mentally, they rebuild confidence, purpose, and identity. Socially, they reclaim respect, attraction, and presence. But the deepest change is this: they stop disappearing. They stop slowly fading into the background of their own lives. They become participants again. They become examples, not of